Hello everyone and welcome to Heart to Heart, a series of vodcasts from your local charity Northern Ireland Chest, Heart and Stroke. I'm your host Sarah Travers, and if you've watched any of the other vodcasts, you'll know we carry out interviews with survivors, with supporters, with friends of NICHS, and we hear about real experiences of living with chest, heart and stroke conditions, and of course the work of the charity here in Northern Ireland. Well, today's episode is extremely topical. It's all about living with long COVID. And I'm joined today by Rebecca Logan, who fell ill with COVID-19 last year and aged just 40. She went from being perfectly healthy and extremely active to being virtually housebound due to long COVID. So we're going to be hearing all about Rebecca's experience, but we'll also have advice for others living with long COVID now and find out how Northern Ireland Chest, Heart and Stroke's COVID-19 recovery programme, the first service of its kind in Northern Ireland, find out what it actually does and how it can help with your recovery. So I'm delighted also to be joined by the Director of Care Services at Northern Ireland Chest, Heart and Stroke, Catherine Murnin. So welcome to both of you. But Catherine, I'll come to you in just a moment. But Rebecca, your story has been told quite a few times. A lot of the media are very, very interested in what you've been through. But if you could take us back, if you don't mind, to your experience of contracting COVID. So what was life like for you before? What happened? And what has happened since?
Well, before COVID, I was a fitness instructor and a bank nurse, which is like a part-time nurse filling in shifts where they're needed. And I worked in emergency department in a hospital in Belfast. So I worked 7 days a week. I worked night duties. I did 12 to 13 high intensity fitness classes a week. I'm a mum of 2 girls who are 12 and 14 and a wife, so I just never stopped. So I was extremely busy, extremely active, loved life, and added in some social events too with that. So I was working in ED right from the start of the pandemic, and most of my shifts were in COVID ED because we had to split the department into non-COVID and COVID, and I was involved with the care of patients coming in who were suspected of COVID and would have been swabbing them and treating them, and unfortunately seeing the horrible side of people dying on their own and that sort of thing in ED. So I was, right in there right from the start, and I contracted COVID on the 7th of April and 2020, and I think that I most likely got it when I was working because I was doing a lot of shifts because obviously we needed all hands on deck, and I was happy to work. And
did you have the adequate PPE at that point?
No, we didn't, because it was just at the start. Nobody knew, it was a new thing, and every day you were told different things to wear. So really, we definitely didn't. Now when you see what is available and what is recommended, what I was wearing was definitely not, up to standard. So,
were you shocked when you contracted it, or did you think this is inevitable?
I think I thought it was inevitable. I kept saying to my family, because they were obviously concerned, and I said, well, I think I'm going to get it, but I'll be okay, because at that stage people sort of thought, 2 weeks, you'll be fine. And it wasn't a particularly scary thing because I was only 39 when I contracted it. I was fit, I was healthy, I had no previous medical conditions. So at that stage, I wasn't in the high risk category. So I just thought, well, it'll be like a mild flu and I'll be okay. I remember the day I actually went into work not feeling well, but I didn't have the typical symptoms. So that's why I went into work. I didn't have a cough, I didn't have a high temperature. I just felt really strange and out of body, like just cold, but it was the strangest feeling.
Really hard to describe.
Yes, and I didn't have a temperature because when I was in work, my colleagues, I said, I don't feel very well. And they checked my temperature, they checked my oxygen saturations, they checked everything, and I was okay. But as the day went on, it felt like I was out of body, as I said, and we were doing some training, and I felt like really detached and dizzy, like I wasn't there, and I just knew that there's something not right. But even that day when I spoke to the charge nurse, he said, we'll see you in 2 weeks. And here I am 16 months later. I've never been able to return to work.
Oh my goodness, that is absolutely horrendous. So at the time when you've got your positive result, then what was your experience of having COVID like?
Well, when I got the positive COVID, and even though I knew I probably had it, I was so upset. I was just like, oh my goodness, I've got COVID. I was in bed for about 3 days, just that awful. My body ached. I had a terrible headache, no appetite. I did lose my taste and smell, but even at that point, that wasn't one of the symptoms. You know, it was sort of like a new thing with COVID. People were losing their taste and smell. I just felt tired. I didn't have a cough, but I noticed that I was a bit breathless. So yeah, I was, for the first 10 days, I was pretty miserable, dizziness, you know, but I got up every day. My girls were a bit frightened, you know, obviously, so I was trying to, you know, be a mummy, you know, and that sort of thing.
The rules and the advice on restrictions or what to do or to isolate from the rest of the house, people didn't really know what to do at that point.
Yes, because I had obviously, the Saturday before I went into work feeling unwell, I taught a class in my house on Zoom, and looking back, I couldn't remember the routine, and I taught it loads of times, and I just felt awful. But I'd been living with the girls and Gus, my husband, all the way through, you know, on this time. And I said to my husband, will I stay in our bedroom? And he said, no, we're okay, we'll just all stick together. But it wasn't like a definite thing at the time. You know, the girl on the phone said, it's up to you, you know, just be careful with bathroom and towels and that sort of thing.
And we'd no vaccinations at that point?
No.
So, okay.
So those first 10 days, I was pretty unwell, but I felt that I was getting a wee bit better at 10 days. And then all of a sudden, I woke up, you know, at day 11, and I just could not breathe, you know, just gasping constantly, couldn't finish a sentence, like just even sitting up.
Even thinking about it now, you can see.
Yeah, so I have friends who are doctors over in ED, and I text them and said, what do you think? And they said, no, you need to come over. So for me, that was probably the most traumatic time, whenever I had to go to A&E and leave. My girls are in tears. My husband was in tears, and I was like, I don't know if I'm coming home. You know, that's how bad I felt at that stage when I went over to A&E. And whenever you're a nurse and you see a colleague and you're worried about them, then you see that in their eyes. And I remember my friend, she looked in the window and she looked like I thought I was going to go, but well, I didn't, obviously. But it's just, you know, I think people don't realise, even for how scary it is to go to hospital and not have your partner or someone with you. You know, I had to walk in and leave them, and they didn't know what was going to happen. I didn't know what was going to happen. But my colleagues, their fear in their face made me more fearful. But thankfully, you know, I didn't need to be admitted, because at that point they were really only admitting people who were really in need of the hospital bed. And I basically, as a nurse, begged them. I said, look, if you think I'm okay to go home, I will just go home, because I was scared to be admitted, because I kind of thought the outcome wasn't as positive at that point, you know, for patients who went in with COVID, you know. So
what was your treatment then?
I had just had, I think it gave me fluids and a bit of oxygen, but it wasn't, again, I'd had antibiotics previous, you know, whenever they had x-rayed me on the day that I was last at work, they'd given me antibiotics to take as a precaution. So they didn't give me any more antibiotics because I'd just finished the course. So there wasn't really a treatment as such. It was go home and rest and just hope that your breathing improves.
Well, that was the thing. I mean, did your breathing improve?
it improved a little. It got to, it didn't improve enough that the doctors were happy. And, you know, I kept in touch with the doctors in ED, and on the 5th week, they wanted me back because they were worried I had a PE, you know, a clot in my lung, because the breathing hadn't improved significantly. So I went back over, but my bloods were okay, which is normal, which is quite a common thing in COVID, long COVID. After, you know, at this stage, I was 5 weeks down the line, so I was quite unusual, you know, for
And
them
we
to see.
hadn't heard of long COVID
No.
at that point.
That would have been May time, you know, so again, it was new.
And were people taking you seriously? Did you find you got a lot of support at the time?
Well, my colleagues knew me and what I was before, so they did see that I was not right. You know, they knew I wasn't well, and they just said, you need more rest, you need complete rest for 2 weeks, you know, because up until that point, even despite my breathing, I was trying to walk, you know, a bit around where we live, because you think, well, that's what you do, you just try to improve your function and that sort of thing. But they said, no, complete rest, and hopefully your breathing will settle. And it did to a degree, but I would still have episodes of breathlessness or, you know, just struggling with my breathing. But I think at this stage it's more to do with the fatigue rather than, you know, a chronic lung condition.
So you're 16 months on now, and how would you describe how you feel today?
I feel my main symptoms now would be fatigue, and I say it's crippling because it has literally crippled me, and to the point that I am 80% housebound unless someone can take me out. If I do go out, I have a stick or a wheelchair if it's going to be for, you know, a longer distance. I have headaches all day, every day. I waken up and feel like I have the worst hangover. No sleep refreshes you. I would have nightmares. I would have very restless sleep. I have constant ringing in my ears, which only really started in January. You know, so it's not. Some of my symptoms have only started since January. So it's a really bizarre condition. I have pain in my muscles, in my back, in my joints. I have muscle weakness, but it's not due to deconditioning, if you know what I mean. You know, there's a difference, because I know as well with fitness instructing, it's a different type of, it's not just because you haven't exercised in a while, you know, it's a different sort of feeling. It's a heaviness. Like some days I struggle to, this sounds really exaggerated, but lift my arms to feed myself.
Really? That bad?
That's how bad. Or if you're lying in bed and you want to turn over, that's a real effort. And that's like really, I think people think that's a very exaggerated thing, but it's not, it's real, you know. And
for somebody who, I mean, even just reading the introduction to you, I was exhausted just thinking of the way you worked before. I mean, it was 24/7, on the go, on, energy.
Yes.
Endless energy.
Yes.
How horrendous has it been for you to now live this life?
It's pretty horrendous. I think a big part of it is acceptance, and you know, I would say I've only really started to accept this 90% of the time from about May. You know, not, you know, it's taken a long time to get my head around it because I think I was still fighting it, which wasn't helping with my recovery. You know, I was angry, I was frustrated. I still get that.
Well, you want to have hope as well. You want to think, well, it will improve. Do you feel it will improve?
I don't know. I think because I'm not getting any improvement. You know, I look okay. I think that's a big part of it. You know, people think, sure, she looks okay, but they don't see that later on I'll be fit for nothing. You know, you have to choose your activity, and then you suffer the consequences.
And even going through this and having to talk at such,
so
that this is exhausting.
Yes.
And we really appreciate you doing this. Now, I don't want this to be completely doom and gloom, because
no.
I think acceptance is part of that. And you've also had some great support from Northern Ireland Chest, Heart and Stroke with their COVID recovery programme. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yes. I saw another long COVID sufferer, Saskia, on the TV talking about the programme in about September, October time. And when I saw Saskia, I thought, that's me. Oh my goodness, someone else is going through this, because up until then, no one wasn't really talked about, or no one really knew what was going on. So I contacted the charity and requested if I could take part in this recovery programme. And I got a phone call from Gemma, and I mean, that phone call just made my day. I cried afterwards, because it was the first time someone who didn't know me but totally believed everything I was talking about and said, we're here to help. And, it's not that they knew what long COVID was, because it wasn't actually a known condition until the end of December, or just before Christmas. And that just validation of someone saying to you, we believe you, we're here for you, we don't know what to do, but just to have the support was amazing.
You're not on your own anymore.
You're not on your own. So I started the recovery programme, I think it was the end of November, and the first meeting we had was where there was 12, no, there's maybe 15 or something, I can't remember, but we're all women, and all around the same. Well, the youngest was maybe 36 at the time, 35, and then the oldest lady was in her late 60s. And just to see women and all of us going through the same thing was just amazing. And to have
this virtual
over Zoom, and from all over Northern Ireland, which was great. And it was the first time I felt just, oh my goodness, there's other people going through this. And the support that the girls, that Gemma and Aisling provided every week, was just amazing. And they taught us about breathing techniques, relaxation tips, diet, setting goals, which I think after such a long time of not being well, you kind of think, you sort of lose focus, and also it was good because we set the goals and then we were accountable to them.
Oh yeah, that's all, an accountability buddy. Yeah,
that was really good. Even on Zoom, you could go into like little pairs to talk with other women, and we got to know each other as well, from doing that. And we always had a question, we had to come back with the answers, but we didn't ever have the answers because we were too busy talking about our experience and how we felt. So.
But even that in itself is just suddenly, here's people, and did you find that they all had the same experience? Were the symptoms the same?
They were very similar, yes.
And sharing tips and techniques of how to cope?
Yes, we were all just so relieved to actually be heard, because I think a lot of the problem up until then, and continues to be, is that when we phoned our GP, they weren't very supportive, or they didn't know what was going on.
And they prescribe usually, so there's nothing to prescribe.
Exactly. So there was that, none of us had a great support from anyone other than family members. So to actually, just even to talk and say, well, I did that and it didn't work, or, it was really good.
And also with family members too, you don't want to be burdening them all the time.
That's right, yes.
You're trying to be strong for the girls.
Yes, that's right, yes. All of those. And sometimes we did. So we got to know each other well enough to be real. Some weeks you knew when someone wasn't right, but the Chest, Heart and Stroke girls were so aware of that they would have made sure that, they would have said, like, Rebecca, are you okay? They noticed it, even though it was virtual, they were still so sensitive and aware of that. And some days some of us did cry because we'd had a really bad week. But that was okay, even to be able to do that. And we were all there to support each other, which was nice, rather than it sort of, as you say, with family members, you maybe don't do that because you're trying to be the brave person, and not let on. So the service was just a lifeline for me. I say that constantly that it just gave me that lift that I needed at that time.
And going forward, I'm sure you're all very close now. Do you keep in touch?
We have. After the programme ended, I asked Gemma if it would be possible to continue the group, after, and 12 of the girls then continued. We met every week from January. I hosted a meeting, and that was a really good support. Just with the way my symptoms then progressed, it was taking too much out of me, and we sort of have had a bit of a break just because I had to protect myself as well, but I've 3 girls in particular that I would be very close to, and we speak, have messaged each other regularly and just check in. And I've also reached out to other people in Northern Ireland who maybe haven't been through the recovery programme, but just with my social media work, I've sort of reached them, and then I've hosted other meetings.
You've been extremely busy, and you've become really a spokesperson, and sharing your experiences has helped so many, but you have to look after you. We're going to let you have a little rest now, Rebecca, because thank you for sharing with us, but I'm going to bring Catherine in. Obviously, Catherine Murnin is watching and listening to this, Director of Care Services at Northern Ireland Chest, Heart and Stroke. I mean, an incredibly powerful story there, Catherine, and as we've been hearing, Rebecca is not alone, and even just hearing how young she is and how many other younger people have been affected by long COVID. And I know Northern Ireland Chest, Heart and Stroke has always dealt with respiratory illness and disease, but this has been something that you've had to offer and turn to and pivot within the organisation really quickly, and you've done it so well. Tell me how you set up the recovery programme.
Well, I suppose last year we just had moved everything to an online platform because all of our services before that would have been face-to-face, and our respiratory team identified really early on, probably about April time, that people would go into the pandemic and come out of it with a respiratory condition that they didn't have before. So I suppose before long COVID was a thing, the team actually recognised that some sort of COVID recovery would have to happen.
And then at what point did you start to realise, this is not just what happens at the time and the 10 days or the month afterwards? At what point did you realise that long COVID was a thing?
Well, I suppose we were getting inquiries from individuals who themselves hadn't been in hospital or had been in for a very short time, but were really feeling quite overwhelmed. And I suppose that the symptoms that Rebecca talked about, feeling tired, feeling breathless, and we knew from experience that our self-management programme within the Breathing Better team could actually help that.
And Rebecca has also mentioned, the NHS were completely overworked dealing with the emergency end of things. The GPs, sure, you couldn't go into the surgery. What could they actually do? So there was a real need for you to be there in that supportive role, and you stepped up.
We did, and I think that was testimony just to the skills of the team. Northern Ireland Chest, Heart and Stroke is that local charity and very much wanted to be there to support people when they needed it. As you say, we knew that GPs were closed, people were encouraged not really to come to ED as well, so the programme was put together very quickly, but online worked really, really well.
Well, as we were hearing there, and that support and that sharing of experiences and that unburdening when you don't want to always be putting upon your family or your friends, and you think, I need to talk to somebody who understands. And the sensitivity that the staff showed as well, and the compassion, has been incredible. You must be so proud of your staff.
Extremely proud, and I think the things that Rebecca talked about around people maybe not understanding, because COVID was so new, and most people who've come on the programme look like they did before they had COVID, so it's those hidden challenges that they've had around fatigue, the worry, and I really loved the fact that people talked about feeling listened to for the first time. And the team, I've seen them in action in that online platform where they create that opportunity for people just to feel connected. They deal with the emotion of all of that, but it's just testimony to the skills that the care services team have in Chest, Heart and Stroke, that they just put that into practice in their jobs.
Now, it is called a recovery programme, and that's absolutely where you hope that you can get to. A lot of that recovery is mental as well as physical, would you say?
Totally, and again, everybody's so different and so individual, even though they have shared symptoms, but we don't know what people are coming from in terms of their own personal circumstances. A lot of that is shared online, but again, it's such early days yet. Hopefully there will be other things that will come in place to enable people to recover, but mentally and physically, I think that connection and peer support has been something that's really helped people through.
I think it's been incredible. I mean, that's exactly right. You know, you're putting together a program, and you're looking to experiences all around the world for, has other people, you know, have they been through this? What works? What do you find has been the best thing that you do on the recovery program apart from the support? What are the practical steps? What are the exercises? We heard about some breathing techniques and things like that. What does seem to work?
Well, it is those practical things, and I think sometimes when people are in the thick of it, they don't often understand the skills that they actually have in themselves. So it's just really teasing those out. So letting people know that the things around anxiety, breathlessness, fatigue, they are normal processes within long COVID, and there's lots of things you can do around that. So I think we just talk a lot to people about taking that time to reflect, that time to actually take your exercises but not push through. We've heard a lot of people talking about just get in there and push through. No, there's a lot of growing evidence now to say that there has to be specific ways to do that. So I think our team have really enabled people to do that as well. And also things like sleep. Again, a lot of people who've come through the programme, like Rebecca, motivated, balancing different lives. You have to be able to take that time back just to relax and restore your body as well. And every day will be different. And even if you do have a good night's sleep, you can still feel fatigued the next day. So those tips and techniques to manage that are really, really important.
Rebecca also sort of, you spoke there about acceptance, you know, kind of knowing that I'm right here, right now, and maybe only baby steps forward some days and not so many steps another day. But if there's anybody watching this now that maybe feels they've had COVID and they haven't recovered properly, but they're not quite sure, is it long COVID? What is this? What support can you give them?
It is the baby steps, the small steps. And I think, as Rebecca mentioned as well, sometimes it's just people feeling that they're actually being listened to. Again, no criticism of what's happening in health and social care, but it's a very busy, pressurised place at the moment. So we would say to people, get in touch with us. Obviously, we have capacity issues and we have to triage people and take a referral process. But sometimes it's just getting that initial conversation with somebody who can listen to you, give you some information, and then you feel that you can take those next steps yourself.
So you really have become firefighters in all of this as well. You're delivering a service that's so badly needed. Can you talk numbers at this stage? What are we looking at?
So at this stage we've had 4 programmes and we have put almost 100 people through that. Now we've had a lot more inquiries and a lot more advice behind the scenes, but in terms of the actual 6-week programme, it initially started as a pilot in July last year. We had no idea that it would go as far as it did go, but at the moment we're in conversations with our health and social care colleagues because we do feel it's our 75th year. We're in a respiratory pandemic and we really should be able to secure some respiratory funding for that.
And are you getting that recognition that you are providing this?
It's starting now, I think, and you know that's always the challenge, Sarah. The charity sector, I think, sometimes can be perceived as, you know, the poor relation, but we're really encouraging the powers that be to get us around the table early on to have those conversations that will enable the solutions to come in place and listen to that lived experience of people like Rebecca.
Yeah, and the thing is, we've seen with all of these vodcasts, you know, you absolutely depend on fundraising and the public donations to keep these services going, and that's just not enough when it comes to this particular service.
I don't think so, because we don't know how long COVID is going to be around. I mean, when you look at some of the statistics around cases and things that are happening just in the last wee while, what knock-on effect is that going to actually have? So we want to be there, we want to be ready to support as many people as we possibly can, but we can't do that without the generosity of the public, but also I think for our statutory sector to step up as well.
And Rebecca, when you hear that, when you know that this service only exists because of the generosity of the Northern Irish people, does it frustrate you? Do you think that this needs to receive more funding from government?
Absolutely. I mean, I've said from I was first on the programme that it's brilliant that the charity stepped up so early on. But I think it's a bad reflection on the health and social care. You know, I know there was it's a pandemic and they had to firefight, as you said earlier, you know, the situation. But I think the charity needs recognised as being the one and only thing in Northern Ireland that actually was there for people with long COVID right from the start, or even recognised that COVID wasn't just a 2-week condition that was going to go away. You know, I think they definitely need recognised, they definitely need help. And
you're helping as well in your own small way. You and your daughters are definitely, you know, fundraising for the charity. Tell us what you're doing. I think we can see some evidence of what you're doing.
Excuse me. Well, I can't do anything physical for the charity to fundraise, and we started to make jewellery, so beaded jewellery. I've got my bracelet and my necklace on, and we just have been, it's something that the girls and I can actually do together and enjoy most of the time. And then we decided, we sort of said it as a joke, you know, we could sell this, and then we sort of talked about it a bit more, and then we decided that 50% of the sales would go towards chest, heart and stroke, just a small way of, you know, contributing, giving back to what they've done for me personally, and for how that has also, my girls and my husband and wider family recognise what the charity has done for me. So we just thought we'd do our own wee thing to give back.
Come on, give it a plug then, if anybody's watching.
Well, it's called Trixie's Trinkets, and we're on Instagram and Facebook. So you can tell us what you'd like to order. We do personalised, bespoke, custom made. You know, we do it.
So you have the girls working very hard there.
Yes, they're working away,
dealing with all the orders. Yes. But you've done quite well.
So we have had the business going for 4 weeks, and we have raised £195 for chest, heart and stroke.
That is
in the first 4 weeks.
Amazing.
So I'm hoping that continues. So just grateful for the people who've bought from us and hope to continue to.
I'm dreading even asking you this question, but I'm just wondering where you are now in your life, in acceptance, in your goals. You know, where do you see the future for you?
I think the future is uncertain still for me. You know, I think this time last year I thought I would be better by now and back to normal. So I think it's uncertain. I think I've accepted that I'm not going to be that person I was before. You know, I've been told recently, you know, it could take years and years. I need to park certain things that I aim to get, you know, work and fitness and that sort of thing. I just have to, you know, some days it's really hard, and I think coming into a different, you know, your second autumn or second winter of being unwell when you've been so fit before, and also not realising how COVID sometimes I can't believe that COVID has caused me to be like this, and never did I think that. But I just have to just keep going as I am and make the most of, I've definitely try to make the most of how I am. And if we go out, we know we've got a 2-hour window of what we can do and what I can't do. Like, I can't go to shops, which kills me because I love shopping. But, you know, I choose what I do so that we can enjoy that time. And
so the mobility is an issue. I know you have
a stick here and a wheelchair. Yeah, so mobility is a big issue. Plus, cognitively I get very tired, which things that I didn't even know would affect a person. You know, noise, light, music. Going into a restaurant is like, you know,
too much going
on. And some people hear that and think it's anxiety. It's not anxiety. It's just that cognitive. It's all your senses are heightened. I don't know if COVID has obviously done that, because it wouldn't have been an issue before.
But do others say the same thing?
Yes, others have said the same. The cognitive fatigue can be as bad as the physical fatigue, and brain fog and, you know, that sort of thing.
So you have to adapt to be able to move forward. Is there any small goal that you have that you'd like to achieve? The fundraiser.
The fundraiser. Yeah, just to keep going with that. And I think my main goal is my girl. It has affected the whole family, so they're my priority in making sure that they accept me as I am now too. So just I think we're getting there slowly. You know, because initially they were really upset with me in the wheelchair. obviously, but now they fight over who pushes me because they're so protective. Do you know what I mean? It's just, small goals it's hard to know. It's just making the most of the way I am. And I think for a while I was very negative about the way I was, have to embrace it and go forward.
Looking for the positivity, so
Yeah.
the positive somewhere. But Rebecca, I tell you, it's been a pleasure talking to you. I'm really sorry for everything you've been through, but you are a fantastic champion, and keep fighting.
Thank you, Sarah.
Baby steps. And
Thank
Catherine,
you.
thank you very much for joining us. So thanks so much to Rebecca for sharing her story on this edition of Heart to Heart. And of course, if anybody has been affected by long COVID and would like some support, you can contact Northern Ireland Chest, Heart and Stroke. So coming up on our next edition of Heart to Heart, we'll be talking all about asthma and the dangers of not managing it correctly. So I hope you can join us again for that. Make sure that you follow Northern Ireland Chest, Heart and Stroke on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram or Twitter. Until next time, thank you very much and we'll see you again.